Hi, I'm Bruce Lorincz, and this show is called Bruce on the Loose. I talk to people in city government and some county officials as well, also businesses in the community and the school system. Drew Hutton is with us today, and he is the field maintenance coordinator of all the fields here in Wadsworth City Schools. And Drew, thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll learn a lot about what you do. You kind of sometimes fly under the radar, but when did you first think about you wanted to get into field maintenance?
I was at Kent State working on my marketing degree, and just as a summer job, I had a friend that worked on a golf course in Stowe, and I'd started working there, and it just kind of evolved into a passion for taking care of the grounds on the course, and kind of faded away from the marketing degree. And as soon as I graduated from Kent, I decided to go to Ohio State ATI down in Worcester, and then just that kind of kicked the whole thing off, working on golf courses, and then it kind of evolved into doing grounds maintenance and field maintenance.
I understand you also had a tenure with the Akron Arrows when they first opened up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It was kind of just a job to help pay some bills, to be honest, and I was fortunate enough to get one of the two paid positions and worked 2 seasons there under Chris Walsh. And my first year we were Arrows, and the second year we were Rubber Ducks. So it was definitely a great experience. I learned a lot there. Previous to that, I had helped build fields with a builder out of Brecksville, Ohio, and really enjoyed my time there, learned a lot, and it kind of evolved into this job as well, because there was a guy on the crew that actually went to Wadsworth, and he told me about this when there was a position open, which I hadn't applied for the first time, but the second time it came around, I was fortunate enough to catch it at the right time and interviewed and got the position.
I bet it was pretty exciting working for Canal Park. That facility, by the way, $32 million it cost to construct it. JOK, the construction company, also did Progressive Field, well, Jacobs Field back then, and also Camden Yard. So really they had a good track record. Again, what were some of the things that, and I have a autographed baseball there that John just showed. Believe it or not, I did the first game ever. They let the high schools play before the Arrows played, and I did the first game with 3 other gentlemen from Wadsworth, John Hoover, Mr. McKeon, and also Dick Nettles. So I was real fortunate, and it wasn't a close game. 33-0. Ellett beat Central Howard, which was a high school then, and it was pretty anticlimactic for the game, but very exciting. Just everything with, and I think one year was voted the best minor league park in the country. Is that true?
I don't know for sure, but that wouldn't shock me at all. It's a nice family-friendly place that, you know, wife, husband, kids, grandkids. Really, I mean, even now that Mr. Babby, who is the new owner that came in when I was there, he's put a lot of money into it and changed a lot of things, and it's one of the better ballparks I've been to, and it's not just because I work there. But basically, just what I learned there was the operation of how head groundskeepers, just the daily process to get from, you know, starting out the morning, mowing, doing the skin, mounds, home plate, all the way up through the day, batting practice, and then game time. And there's stuff we do during the game. We do drag, change bases, and stuff like that. And obviously, if there's weather, we have to pull tarp and do all that, which is a beast in and of itself. But just how to communicate with coaches and umpires and the general manager, and it's not just the ball field. There's a lot of other things that revolve around it as far as in-game promotions and stuff like that. So as far as field work, I mean, it was just an everyday thing. It was almost the same. I mean, you're doing the same thing every day and have a process, but through that process, you always find a better way to do things, or find different materials that work better for you and things like that, different practices. I mean, there's even people that you meet along the way that you can bounce ideas off of and see what they're doing at their places. And so, I mean, just building those relationships is really nice.
If the club is away, that really doesn't give you, I mean, it may give you a few days off, but you always kind of look ahead, I would imagine, to see how you can keep conditions good for the players and also the umpires and fans.
Oh, yeah. When the team's out of town, it's nice, but you still, I mean, they've shot commercials, or somebody else is coming in, like the University of Akron plays, or high school teams. So there's always something going on. I mean, you might not have 100% of the days you have with no teams or activities going on. So you really have to use your time wisely to, get the things accomplished that you want to accomplish in between homestands.
I know some high schools just have their regular maintenance people do the grounds and try to keep up, but even expanding to football and baseball, it's really important, and injuries can happen when there's holes or ruts in the field, and I would imagine you can, with your expertise, you can try to cut down on that a little bit to make sure the players, there's enough injuries anyway with the play, let alone with the fields.
Well, it's kind of twofold now that we've got the synthetic too, so that a lot of misnomers are that's maintenance free, which isn't true. We have to groom, like especially soccer on corner kicks, will kick the infill out, so you have to, fill it back in and even it out, and the lacrosse creases or where the goalie's standing. So that's always, and we have a pull behind machine that it's a groomer. It kind of fluffs the rubber up, and there's a brush on it that kind of evens it back out and stands the turf back up, so you get a nice smooth consistent surface through. I mean, our field gets a lot of play in between high school and Reynolds, and youth football uses it as well. But like on the grass fields, you just got to be out there paying attention to it. If the coaches have concerns, you have to try to immediately address those types of things. There's things you do through maintenance, like top dressing and rolling are probably the two biggest things to keep a nice, smooth, consistent surface that's not, there's not places where you're going to twist an ankle or create an injury that doesn't happen, that you just have to do your due diligence and knowing what your field is and what it's doing, and if the coaches do have those concerns, that you address them so there aren't injuries, because that's the last thing you want to see are injuries on high school kids that, they're shooting for scholarships or what have you, and you don't want them to be out for 4 weeks or an entire season because there was something that, wasn't addressed on the field side.
I think a lot of people would be really surprised at your response that, they would say, well, it's a turf field down at the football field and the stadium. Boy, there probably is nothing. That groundskeeper's got it made in the shade and there's nothing to do. And I think you've let us know that that's not the case, that there are, especially where people stand on a regular basis, the goalkeeper, corner kicks, those types of things. I never would have thought about that, but it's something that you have to address. Who's your immediate boss?
Scott Larch.
Okay, right.
He's in charge of facilities and grounds.
Right. What about situation in dealing with Mother Nature? This would be a week that you just kind of have to throw your hands up and said, usually March is iffy, and then it gets a little better, but not quite so this spring.
I think we're still in the April showers portion of haven't quite got to the May flowers yet, but today would be a perfect example. We haven't been able to play baseball or softball since last Thursday because it's just the rain and sleet and snow and everything. It seems like we're going back into winter at this point. But like this morning, I've already texted our softball coach because he asked me last night if there was a chance to play, and as soon as there's standing water on fields, there's not really much you can do unless you get here in the morning and the weather's gone out and the sun comes out and the wind starts blowing to dry all the surfaces out. So you just gotta, but the way they do it is they kind of schedule all open days, so you can, if you have to cancel, you've got open days that you can call the other team and see if you can squeeze it in on a different day just to get them in. And the league games are the most important because obviously you're shooting for league titles and you don't want to not play one of those games, especially if you're tied at the end or playing for one game for a Suburban League championship. So yeah, it's sometimes you just gotta grin and bear and take it and get out there when you can. And the biggest thing after the weather is making sure it's safe for everybody, because that's paramount, honestly, to what everything looks like. Like everybody, oh, it looks great, but does it play great too? If it plays great and it looks okay, you know, you can live with that and work on aesthetics later, but safety is the number one thing.
Yeah, especially I would imagine in baseball, softball, the mound, if the pitcher can go ahead and get good footing there, and the batters. So you have already communicated to Scott Larsh that the game today is washed out.
Yeah, just with what it looks like now and what's coming our way still until this afternoon, it looks like it's going to finally get out of here. So we're shooting for tomorrow and Friday and a good day on Saturday. So,
you know, people always look at the football fields where the play happens, but practice fields are very significant as well. And we have numerous, I think 5 football teams, 7, 8, 9, JV, varsity. Which of those teams plays at the stadium, and what about the other teams that practice facilities, and where do they sometimes play their games?
Varsity and JV and freshmen all play down at the stadium. 7th and 8th grade have, if they have like their championship game and it's hosted by us in Wadsworth. Otherwise, they're at the track field here behind the middle school is where they play their home games. And even at the stadium, we get youth football. I don't even know how many teams they have at this point, honestly. But and then practice fields, we have a full-size one here behind the high school, which varsity has gone away from, as well as JV, and the freshmen probably use it more than anybody. And then in between the junior high and the high school is the middle school field, and that's, I think, an 85-yard field, just because it's been condensed because we have discus and shot put over there as well that take up some space. So,
do you go ahead and mow that grass, or does maintenance mow it and then you kind of take it from there?
I mow it as much as I possibly can, just so I can be on it and see it. If there's anything that I can see while I'm mowing that needs to be addressed, I can fix it, and I mow them, paint them, top dress, fertilize, airify. I do all that. I do that to all the athletic fields.
So you're like a one-man band. You try to do as much as you can so you can kind of stay on top of things. And when you do need help, you probably know who to go to Scott and get some other people to assist.
Well, we have Margaret and 2 other guys that are 30-hour guys, and another maintenance that works a certain percentage that helps out, because we mow the whole district. We're not just here at the high school. And I mean, most of my time is spent on fields, but I still get out and mow other areas, and special projects, if those come up, I'm usually in on those too.
And then also the tournaments that I know in the past that we've hosted soccer tournaments from the Ohio High School Athletic Association, and we have people coming from all sorts of areas in Northeast Ohio. That's something that you probably have a hand in as well.
Just on the maintenance side of it. Like, we have the fire police softball game on Sunday, so we're gonna get the field ready for that. And we've had colleges come in and practice down at the stadium for, I think the last one was soccer, but I mean, there's other special events down there. We have graduation down there now. And it's usually like the high school playoff games, like baseball and softball, and those are usually happening up here. So
What options do you have for, you talked earlier in our conversation about training, that you talked to other people from other school districts and maybe even the city or other cities. Are there options, maybe classes you could take with state-of-the-art new things?
There's a national organization called Sports Field Managers Association, so haven't really gotten involved much in that just because it's, if you want to go to their show, it's a big cost to stay in a hotel and airfare and all that. But we have a local chapter as well that's affiliated with them, and they'll go to the Cincinnati Reds or the Bengals or the Browns or even the Buckeyes. They'll have an all-day thing set up where they have a seminar along with like a field and facility type tour thing. So that's really nice to get on all those. Ohio Department of Agriculture, because I have to have a spray license to spray pesticides and the things like that. So that's like every 4 years I have to go through a course to renew my license for that. So and even I would say Twitter is kind of a pretty big resource because you've got guys that are shooting videos or showing you what they're doing, and it's just, I don't want to stay the same year to year. I want things need to be better year in and year out. And I mean, there's stuff that other guys are doing that I'm not doing that, hey, that looks like it works for him, maybe it'll work for me, and trial and error and see if it works. If it does, and it's to your advantage, whether it's doing something new on the infield or something that's going to save you time, or it's a different product that you've never used that's going to help out.
What are some of the conversations you have with your coaches? They certainly would like to play almost every day, but sometimes they see little things that can be improved, and I'm sure you appreciate that input from them.
I would say the majority of them are about weather.
Right.
Not really. I would say like on baseball, there's been times where there's inconsistencies like in the infield that need to be addressed to kind of smooth out the surface, and they'll let me know about things like that, or if there's a bad spot in the outfield, or the lip transition between the clay and the grass isn't good and it's a tripping hazard, or bad bounces and stuff like that. It'd be addressed, but I would say 90% of communication with them is about the weather, especially with softball and baseball. On the football side, since they normally practice on synthetic, it's really not, unless you need something like painted for a line drill, or I think last year I painted like a 20-yard, like mimic just the basic field behind the goalpost, so they had an area to work when the middle schoolers came out to warm up for their game.
I think people underestimate when we have inclement weather how the wind can play a factor, and wind can really assist drying a field out. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. And up here at the high school, it never just seems to stop blowing. So I would say wind's probably the biggest one, along with sunshine, and even low humidity will help. And if you can get full sun, that's even better to help. Plus the conditioner that's on the skin helps pull that moisture out of the clay underneath, and then it helps, once the sun and wind hit it, it helps it evaporate. So it's almost like a sponge, and it just keeps pulling, because if you see the field and it looks a dark brown and then it turns to a light, that's that working and pulling that moisture up, and then eventually the surface will be completely dry and you'll have a nice moisture-filled clay underneath that conditioner for a pretty good field.
After a softball game, I saw the junior varsity girls get rakes, and they were raking the field. Was that from the coach's standpoint, or yours, or why was that a benefit?
They've kind of just done that on their own since I started working here, which to my benefit, especially if there's going to be rain or something overnight, if they can kind of help rake out some of the bad spots where there might be, where the cleats have torn up the surface or whatnot, and then it makes my day a little bit easier if it's just rain overnight and then we are able to play the next day. But yeah, they're just kind of, I think it's a point of pride on their side, and I don't know if it's, I mean, it helps me out for sure, and I think it's just a respect thing between them and me, I guess. I've never asked. It's just I think it's a great thing that they've just always done.
Coach Pickard, in conversation with him, said that we have one of the best baseball fields around. That's certainly a testament to you, and he feels good about having his kids, with contests at home, and it has to make you feel pretty good that he has such high regard for your work.
Yeah, that's always nice to hear, regardless of what it's about. So, yeah, we work pretty well together, and there's nothing that we can't communicate on. And that's always my aim. We've got kids going to college, and I think they deserve to play on the best field that I can provide for them. I don't know if it helps them get there or attain their goals, but a nice, safe playing field, and kind of gives them a point of pride to play on to kind of move to the next level.
And it's a community thing too. I mean, we really take our buildings here in Wadsworth are second to none, and we really go ahead and have good inside facilities, and certainly we want to do that outside. What about AC? I think there are 3 baseball teams, 9th, JV, and varsity, and I believe they play down at AC Field down on College Street. Do you take care of that field too?
That's usually where the 9th grade plays, and Margaret usually takes care of that. She's kind of just always taking care of it, so I let her do her thing down there, and if she needs my help, I'll help her out. Other than that, she does a pretty good job down there, and it kind of keeps me up here and concentrating on what needs to happen up here. So
I had a conversation with Gary Lake from the YMCA, and certainly a trainer for years and years. And we started talking about the seasons of sports, and I said, there was a movement a couple years ago to have baseball moved from the spring to the fall, and then move football to the spring. I know you're not a politician or anything, but does that make sense to you, having baseball and softball in the fall and then football in the spring?
I think it makes sense as far as weather. I think you'd get better weather in the fall to play baseball and softball, but I've always been like, you'd have to have I think there's a lot of moving parts to that, and you'd have to get a lot of people on board to shy away from tradition of, especially football in the fall. It's always been that way. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. If you weren't displacing football, I think it would probably be a lot easier, but I don't think.
You don't think it's going to happen? Yeah,
I just can't see it happening.
I agree with you. It's really, people look forward to the fall, and certainly, the weather. Although, again, some Fridays and Saturdays, monsoons come,
for sure.
And it's not a guarantee with Mother Nature. But really, basically, you're correct. The fall is a lot drier, in my opinion, and moving it would make some sense.
Yeah.
John, we also had a ball that I signed that Drew would be interested in. There was a transitional field, kind of where maybe right behind the old high school, that they had a field that they came from AC up, and I was the home plate umpire on that first game, along with Butch McKeon from Wadsworth. We also had gentlemen from Barberton and also Doylestown. They did the game, and I also had Bill Goddard, the head coach there, sign it, and Chuck Parsons, the superintendent, and Keith Leggett, the principal. So that was kind of historic in 1999, a couple years after Canal Park started. And Drew, I have a little gift for you. I did a umpire class, and the umpires really appreciate what happens to be able to play. And you can hang that somewhere, or you can go ahead and have that and say, you're appreciated, And
you.
the umpires and the coaches and the fans certainly appreciate all that you do. And now we can't have you flying under the radar anymore. So thank you very much I
Thank
learned a
you.
great deal about the groundskeeping and all you do to make Wadsworth kids feel special, and they really are. I have a second series with Carl Quinona, and it's going to be next week, and we're going to talk about the history of the Cleveland Indians. So looking forward to that. Thanks for viewing.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.